Part of their yard. I said, they are like Park Ridge.
Well, good afternoon to everyone.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
All right.
Glad to see you're feeling better.
I am, thank you. Okay, so for the meeting this afternoon, item 2 is the approval of the minutes from the March 1st, 2024 meeting. Is there a motion for approval?
Well, I have some corrections.
Okay, we can do that too.
Would you like me to tell you that, or do you want to
Why
have
don't
a
you-
motion for approval and then have a
Maybe,
discussion on the
yeah.
changes?
Yeah, this discussion on the changes.
Well, let somebody else move that then.
Okay, I move we approve the minutes.
Okay.
Well, don't we need to amend them first?
Amend them first and then,
Oh,
Yeah.
well, you
yeah,
do the motion
motion
and then you have
Any further
discussion.
Discussion.
and then
You
you
have to vote.
Okay.
Okay,
But
all right.
first, we need a roll call.
yes.
Oh, yeah, do we have quorum?
We do have a quorum. All of the members are present.
That'll work.
Okay, all right. Okay, so with the minutes again, is there a motion for approval?
I will move to approve them with the understanding that we're gonna
We're
make
gonna
some
make some
corrections.
changes, yes. Second on that?
Second.
Okay, all right. So it's been moved in second to approve the minutes for March 1st. Now, do we have discussion on the motion?
I think.
Yes, I have
had
some.
Okay,
corrections.
All right, page 1, the second paragraph. The possibility of a transfer card. It's not a transfer card, it's a transfer slip.
is that at
and-
the end of the second
It's
paragraph?
on the first, it's the second,
Oh, I see that. So it's a transfer slip.
yeah, because
Okay.
it's a paper slip.
Okay.
And I would say a free, use the word free transfer slip. That's why it implicates, I guess, AAT's fair
Okay,
issue. And the second sentence, this transfer slip would be valid for 90 minutes. So take away card.
okay,
And then before that, this transfer slip would be valid for 9 days. I think we need to put in there, Mr. Yang indicated that he would get back with the committee whether the board agrees to this change by April.
Mhm.
And then say this transfer slip would be valid for 90 minutes. Or however you want, it doesn't matter if you put it before or after.
We'll be getting back to Scio because this committee won't be in existence after the end of this month.
That's true, okay.
Yeah,
We'll be getting back to
back to Scio Township.
Scio Township, sure. And then the last sentence, or the next to the last sentence, where it says Parker inquired about the Scio Farms stop, and this item was tabled. Was that a stop inside of Scio Farms, or was that a stop on Jackson Road?
Well, it was regarding, in one of our earlier meetings, we talked about, some of the residents had requested a stop in Scio Farms. And so that was just one of the options that we had listed. And, as part of our discussion, it was decided that that item would just remain tabled.
Okay, so I would say that then to be clear, Parker, because they're stopping at Scio Farms now on
Yes.
Jackson, so
Mhm.
Parker inquired about a bus stop inside of Scio Farms, about a bus stop inside of Scio Farms, and this was tabled.
Okay,
And then the third paragraph, we talked about, Moore asked about if payments can be made to both WAVE and AATA. If, I think it should say asked if separate before payments, asked if separate payments can be made to both WAVE and AATA. Blah, 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 blah,
Okay.
blah. And then at the end of this would need to be.
Can I suggest another clarification here?
Sure.
Asked if separate payments can be made by Scio Township.
Sure. Makes sense. By Scio Township to both WAVE and AATF. And then after it says this will be explored, Yang also said he would get back with the committee,
Yeah,
but I guess it'll have to be Scio
and I
regarding
thought-
whether,
yeah, I thought he said you could do that.
he said he believed that there was no impediment, but he would check on
He
it.
would check on it.
Mhm.
Okay.
Whether there
let's
was an
see.
impediment to WAVE receiving their dollars directly by April. That's all I have.
Any other changes? Okay, if there are no other changes, all in favor of the motion with the amended changes, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. And the motion carries. Okay, the next item is related to the survey update. Chris did update the survey, and I was thinking we should talk about the survey document maybe in more detail, because one of the things I'd like to do is include that as part of the report. Chris?
Yes, thank you. So we have 5 questions. Hopefully you've all had a chance to take a look at them that are listed on our website. And Maria, I did not add those to these, but Maria's been sending
Yeah.
me some from Wave. Thank you very much. So we know that this has increased from the 98 responses. It's going to be even more than that, but especially in the last week, we've got approximately 98 responses to these 5 questions. Of those 98 responses, 39 are bus riders, since we broke it down into riders and non-riders, and 59 are non-riders. I may have misspoken at the last meeting. I think I said 42, but I went back in because I was taking as we were developing the survey, I was taking it as kind of a beta test on that. So I took my responses out of there since I'm a bus rider. So this is more accurate, I think, is by updating it, by taking my previous responses out of there. And of the ones that responded that were riders, by far, it looks like that Route 30, the Jackson Road route, was the one that was ridden the most. And that was 31 riders on Route 30. And then in second came, looks like, Wave, and then Route 31. So it also kind of suggests that because it was Route 30 and with Wave, it does, I would say that the riders, would like to see some type of free bus, connection, to continue on Route 30. But I'm making that kind of leap, but I think just by the respondents and by how they responded from the survey, that there is interest there, that there's a connection being made, further west. Also.
So is that just ask you a question?
Yeah.
So when it says Route 30, 31 respondents, WAVE 15 respondents, and then Route 30 and WAVE 15 respondents.
Correct. They mentioned that in there, so those were separate. But yes, there was respondents that were both the Wave and Route 30.
Gotcha.
That they responded that, yes, they wrote both of them.
Okay.
So the 15 wave responses are duplicated
They
elsewhere?
could have been,
Okay.
they could have been,
But
yes,
it's not, we don't know that
correct.
from this anyway.
Yep. And then for the bus rider frequency, less than 2 days a week, there was 24 of the we say the 40 or 39, that they wrote it less than 2 days per week. Responses that answered yes to the survey, that yes, it looks like that responded yes, that as far as if there were more frequency in bus stops and hours, that they would probably be likely to ride the bus more often. There was 30 of those, so no surprise there. And then there were 59 respondents that were to the no. Again, unlikely they would ride the bus with any future service improvements. Those were 17 out of the 59. With other non-riders stating that they may be open to riding in the future with more bus stops. Those were 16 respondents. And if additional routes and later hours were provided, 12 responses. So, yeah, I'm looking for more feedback. If there's other questions, if you want me to kind of decipher more from the survey. It does close in the end of April. So we still got another probably 5 weeks for this to be open. And like I said, I know there's more than the 98 at this time because I know Maria is now starting to have
Paper
submissions
Mhm.
from Wave. So yes, and I will keep updating it and massaging this. If there's more information that you'd like to see, by all means, I can include it.
So I would say, typically, public transit captures those who are needy. Okay, and my question would be for us in Scio Township in particular, would there be more residents that would ride if there were a park and ride? Obviously, because of the rural nature along with our urban nature is very different than the layout, the setup that's in Ann Arbor or a city. So I used to drive my car to Maple Village and park and catch the bus. I wonder if there would be other people, and this is usually capturing people who are working. I mean, some people, you're never gonna get them out of their cars, but. So
We
anyway,
do have the
that'd be-
one park and ride that I think we discussed at our last meeting, which was out by Skyline.
Oh, it's the Miller
It's
Maple
the-
Park and Ride. And that serves directly downtown campus and the hospitals.
Where is that located?
Right at Miller where,
Miller and 14?
Miller and 14,
Right.
yeah.
Now, so Mike, that is owned, as I understand it, or I may be wrong, is that owned by U of M?
No, it's
owned by
MDOT. Yeah.
Oh, so
on MDOT.
our residents could use it too.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
I actually know that MDOT owns all of that because I just looked it up for some other reason.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and that's a well-used park and ride. Before the pandemic, it actually was full.
Now, that kind of takes us off of existing service. You know, for us.
Yeah.
I was thinking more about people parking in Meyer, grabbing the bus, or there's a park and ride right at Baker in 94. I presume that's MDOT too, because it has an MDOT sign there. Right there, just after Pilot coming from the north.
Park and ride in there?
Yeah, if you go over the bridge coming from the south,
Uh-huh.
first thing you'll see is a little parking lot and then the Pilot gas station and then Marshall Road.
Okay.
So,
Does Wave serve that park and ride, or is it just for carpooling?
well, let's say
We
Wave
could.
goes down Park and Ride. We don't necessarily have service there. I don't know how to explain that. We're not contributing
there's-
to that service.
Right, so right now, there's not a wave stop there. We're open to it. We could also leverage the current door-to-door service, that if people wanted to get picked up there, we could do that and take them where they need to go.
Any other comments?
I just want to say, I appreciate you putting this down. Because I was trying to keep up
Yeah.
last time with what, so thanks for that.
Well, and Chris and I and Joyce have had some internal conversations about how to organize this to make it more accessible. I think one thing we talked about was putting the actual questions in so that we're sort of following the
Yes.
format of the
Yeah.
questionnaire itself. And that way people won't have to sort of hold up
What
the
are they
two
answering
documents
to?
together in
Look
order
at
to
it.
understand them.
Mm.
Then I guess, one question, like, for example, with, look like this is on the first page here, where you have the respondents that answered no to the survey, which was 59, stated it was unlikely they would ride the bus with any future service improvements. So should that be included, like, as part of your, your, chart here?
I can absolutely add
Yeah,
a
maybe
chart.
those comments, since you know exactly
Yeah.
how many people
I can have a
stated
chart.
that, yeah.
Were
Yeah,
they
this is
saying,
kind of difficult to read. I wasn't sure
Yeah.
which per
Well,
the numbers
Yep,
fit what
after
statement
reading it.
down
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
So even
Yeah.
if you just did comma and 17 responses,
said,
and then comma and 16 respondents said. or
so are they
something.
saying no, that they wouldn't ride the bus or they wouldn't ride the
Right.
bus more? Because I think the way
It's-
the question was phrased is, would you increase your use of the
usage,
bus?
yeah. And
And they may have been saying they would never ride the bus. I don't know,
Right,
I don't know.
after
but,
rereading that, it does look that way. Yeah, it reads that
But
way.
it could be that they were saying, well, you know, I'm not gonna increase my use of the bus as a result of these
these
improvements.
improvements, yeah, so we just need to maybe be pretty clear.
Yes,
And clarify those things.
Yep.
Okay. And I can, you know, sit down and we can go over it together.
sounds good to me, Joyce.
All right. Okay, any other questions or comments on the survey? I think it's good information, to be quite frank. And it gives you an idea in terms of whether we're on the right track or not. Okay, then the next item is, the draft report and maybe some discussion related to, the presentation of the report to the Board of Trustees. So I did provide a draft and would like to get comments on the draft. You can either do it today at the meeting, or you could send your comments to me in writing, and then I can incorporate the comments, but it would be beneficial to get comments from the committee.
I do have some comments.
I know you do.
Well, why wouldn't you expect us all to have? I mean, we're all on this committee working on
Absolutely.
fingers off.
Yeah.
So on page 1,
Okay. And the other part of it is fact checking to make sure that I have
That's
the
what I
facts
do.
right. Okay, all right,
and mine may not be right too, so that's
okay.
what I recall. 2, 3. The third line from the bottom of paragraph 1, where it says status of transit. Regarding the status, it says, if you look to the left, a line starts status of transit.
Okay,
First paragraph, third line from the bottom,
okay,
should say status of transit services.
okay.
And a little bit further up, let's see that, 2 more lines up where it says the advisory nope, the committee, the term.
Yeah, there's,
You could say the committee term, get rid of that extra the after committee.
or maybe just the term of the advisory committee expires.
However you want to say it, but there's too many does.
There's too many
You do.
committees and there's too many does.
Okay, all right.
Do you see that?
I don't, I'm missing it. Is it right here? The term?
Yeah, so you just got some extra, you just got some duplicative
Okay, all right.
words. So if you just take out these two, I think the sentence
Okay,
makes sense.
Take committee out. Okay.
Committee and the.
Okay,
Right,
okay,
right.
got it.
And then under current status of transit. The second line in which it says, in year 2015, the millage, first you say the voters approved a 10-year millage. Then you say the millage rate was 0.3627. Then you go on to say the current millage rate approved is 34.3468 to Headley. I think that last sentence, that current, I think it should say the current millage rate was reduced to 3.346 due to the Headley.
Okay,
I think that clarifies it,
okay,
that even though people approved a certain millage rate, it got reduced by the Headley amendment.
okay,
Does that make sense?
yes.
Okay.
Are you on the second page or?
Yeah,
You want to dive in here?
no, I was just thinking it would, I'm thinking just because that whole paragraph on the current status is kind of bulky, that we might want to separate out just the sentence about the millage and make it current transit funding or something like that, and just do a summary of the millage and then dive in more specifically to the current transit services. So there's
Make it-
current transit funding and current transit services.
Sure. So,
And it might be helpful to give.
so right
people-
where it starts, there are 3 AATA routes, that's where we start to talk about services.
Yeah, I think that's a good breaking point.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm thinking that in that summary, I wanna make sure, and I'm not sure where to put it in, are the 32 and 61 that serve Miller Park and Ride and Scio, because those
Why don't we go to that when we
Technically
hit that?
touch that.
Cause I
Yeah.
got some things that,
on the funding thing.
on the services part.
Okay.
So, the sentence starts at the bottom. Route 26, 29 serves the Scio Ridge area. Route 30 serves the Jackson Road corridor from Meyer Store East. And Route 31, you see that on the first page at the bottom?
Oh, we're on the first page.
Yeah, the sentence starts there. So one of the
Are you in
questions
the first paragraph or the second?
I'm on the second paragraph, first page, second paragraph. And then there are 3 AATA routes in Scio Township. Semicolon. Route 26, 29 serves the Scio Ridge area. Route 30 serves the Jackson Road corridor. That was two, okay? And my question is, we don't pay for routes 30, 26, and 29.
Right.
And I didn't know if that would be confusing because we're talking about what we're funding, what we're supporting through our millage. So I thought if you wanted to make a side note there that outside of our funding, these routes are provided by AATA at no cost to Scio residents. I mean, I don't think we should not mention them, because I
Yeah.
think it's educational, but the way it's written now, this is
Sounds
like
like
we're
we're
all
funding
buying
all three.
this from AATA, and that's not true. That includes A-Ride, routes 26, 29, and 31, I guess.
I guess the question is the A-Ride service, my recollection from one of our first meetings was the A-Ride service is something that is sort of connected to the fixed route. Like within a
So-
certain distance of a fixed route, you can have that service.
Yeah,
Right.
so my understanding was that we weren't paying for that, and then our next meeting, we were told we were paying for A-Ride. Okay, so A-Ride's, disregard what I said about A-Ride.
Okay.
So that would be a funded service.
Make it-
Okay, so
may I make a
summarize
sug-
again on that.
Sorry, I was gonna make a suggestion to try and capture what Kim was just saying is, I think it'd be confusing to try and mix together, summarizing the services and the funding, but I think maybe further down, like after summarizing the services, you could have a sentence that says the millage pays for
That's fine.
these these particular services
Okay.
or helps to pay for these particular services. And then that way you're sort of clarifying
Sure.
and differentiating.
That's fine.
Well, you could put it up with the transit funding, current transit funding paragraph and just say the millage directly.
Well, you're
Pays for
introducing, well, the way we have it organized now, we have the status of transit funding. And then we have this transit services. So if you start talking about services in the
When you
funding.
haven't talked about them.
Right, exactly. I think the progression makes sense, but I think that's an important point that we should clarify that these loops that sort of kind of come through the northeast and southeast corner of Scio Township are not really part of our millage.
So that was, and then, so
So
that was like a general, go
just to
ahead.
clarify, this will be like a next subsection, because we're gonna talk about, I did get some information for us, and then if we're gonna talk about what services provided by what funding, it's gonna get even more complicated for WAVE.
Oh,
I think your suggestion though of saying what the state of the millage, the services that exist in Scio and what specifically Scio funds, I think that is
Yeah.
pretty succinct. and
Okay.
I think-
Yeah.
Well, and then I can clarify when we get to that.
Okay.
So then going up to the top of page 2. It says there is also an A-Ride service for persons with disabilities, and it should say and seniors,
Okay.
period.
Is it qualifying seniors?
We don't have to get into that. They can find that out when they call the ride. I mean, we're just doing a little report here, so. I thought about that, but I thought, I don't want to get too wordy, but,
And it's within how,
well, that's good. Qualifying
Well,
seniors.
then we need to say what that is. I mean, if we're gonna. look at
well, if you say
seniors.
qualifying, then they know it's not just free for, it's not just any senior.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's enough.
so how do you, what's the qualification for seniors? Because I'm sure we're gonna
I'm
get.
not actually sure if there is. Let me double check.
Yeah,
I think it's 60+
Right.
is what the state uses,
okay.
and that's what. both
Well, are
of
you a
us know.
senior before 60?
Not according, not according to this policy.
Our age from the time you are born.
Well, that's why, I was asking the
Oh my
question,
God,
what
all
does
these
that mean?
modern definitions.
A question is, a ride within 3/4 of a mile, is
Correct.
that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Of the route.
Of a fixed route.
Of a fixed route, yeah. So it could be 3/4 of a mile of Route 26.
Mhm.
That has to be not necessarily Route 30.
And that's
But when you talk
where,
about a wave, it has to be 3/4 of Route 30, Dexter Road.
Well, I think what Forrest said in the beginning was
But we
everyone
don't
in
do
Scio
that.
Township who qualifies under
Shut
the
up.
criteria is within striking distance of a fixed route. So there's no, I don't think there's any corner of Scio Township that would be excluded is what I took away from Forrest's comment.
On A ride,
Yeah,
A ride is 3/4 of a mile from the fixed route service. Flex ride is their door-to-door service.
right, but I think what he was talking about was the A ride.
Well, I live on Marshall Road is not within 3/4 of a mile of Route 30, Jackson Road.
But is it within any of the other routes that's offered?
I don't think, actually Marshall's not close enough to either of the other loops, for sure.
Right.
So maybe what he meant is most people
Most
in
of
Scio
them.
Township.
and that's why it's
I would,
important. to
I
put-
would, push back on that, but maybe since there's been all this, growth in the southern hemisphere of Scio, maybe that's true. Cause there's more residents on that side.
That's certainly within 3/4 of a mile
Yep.
of the fixed route.
But we have all these residents even further north than me,
Yeah,
or like where Jan's part of.
Well,
town.
actually, I'm within a mile of the Skyline fixed route.
Oh, okay.
And that's why I think it's important to put those routes in, because that mile goes a mile into Scio Township. Or 3/4 of a mile goes into Scio Township. I might be right on the edge.
well, if you,
It's a-
if
I
you,
think
if
it's
you
a
include
mile
all of
plus
these other
route.
routes, not just the two loops, you've got this park and ride, on Miller. So you've got a bus that's coming pretty close to, Walnut Ridge.
Walnut Ridge.
So that would include all of those people. I don't know how many bus riders
Where's
there are.
Walnut Ridge?
Walnut Ridge, where is it?
Mhm.
It's that neighborhood, north of Miller, just this side of M14.
And just west, it's west of, Maple, north of Muller.
Okay.
Yeah, it has an entrance in both those roads.
So I think Forrest is right, one way or another, almost everybody. It's just when you get to the far west end of the township that you probably start to have people who are not within 3/4 of a mile of a route.
Okay.
But everything, I think.
I'd say
along the-
we're getting way out of my knowledge area.
No, I-
To go
part-
with what you're saying.
Well, part of it, I think, is that, if you include these other routes that terminate, like the one on Miller with the park and ride, as well as the little loops on Dexter Ann Arbor Road and Scio Ridge, you probably include almost everybody
Yeah,
in
that's
Scio
getting
Township.
more dense in that area too. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, Ken, did you have anything?
So there is no restriction once you meet the age requirements. All you have to do basically is go down and register and get a card that you can show. Wow. If you do the A ride, it'll cost you the regular fare, which I think is $3, but it's an incentive to get out of A ride because it's way more expensive. Once you hit 60, whatever the age qualification is there, you can ride any fixed route for free. So You get your senior card, you can either take the ADA thing, you know, if you need it with a physical disability, or you can ride the fixed bus routes for free at that point.
At 65?
62?
60 something.
62, maybe 55.
You better know. We don't want to give out the wrong age.
Yeah, I think that's something that they can call, because they gotta call
60, okay,
to
it's,
book a ride anyway. We just say qualified senior.
because of course, this can't be simple.
Oh.
60 to 64, you get a discounted fare on fixed routes. So it goes down to 75 cents. When you hit 65, then you get it for free.
What happens when you're 70? I'm gonna be 70 next
I
month.
don't make you pay you. Yeah.
I gotta start over again.
72.
Ooh, you guys slice and dice it.
I'm gonna have to go get my senior card, man.
Well, I don't even,
Same
they don't do it anymore. Well, they do it for A-Ride, but just your general senior ride, you don't have anymore.
No, I think you have to get a card.
Go kart.
Yeah, so it sounds like you need the qualifications to get the card.
You have to register.
You have to
Yeah, you have
register.
to show up to.
Yeah, you have to
Probably just
register.
with the driver's license.
So I'm with Jan, qualified senior. I think would at
So-
least
so
put a
that's the s-
person on notice.
Top, that sentence at the top of page 2, so there is also the A-Ride service for qualified seniors
Yes,
and
Persons with
persons with
disabilities.
disabilities?
And qualified.
persons with disabilities and qualified seniors,
Okay.
period.
And my suggestion too is if we're gonna say there are, 3 AAT routes, or I don't know how we wanna do it, because some of those are, A-Ride is a service as opposed to a route
Mhm.
possibly, but anyway. But I'm just thinking we should just do, I think it'd be helpful to put numbers with those, so, because it reads easier than reading it in a paragraph, so you can say, 1, Route 26/29 serves the Scio Ridge area, Route 30 serves Jackson Road.
Okay.
3,
She does have that on the bottom of the first page. Route 2629 serves Scio Ridge area, Route 30 serves Jackson Road corridor, Meyer, Route 31 loops through Dexter Road, Wagner area.
But you're saying to like bullet point it essentially.
exactly, so it's
Oh, okay.
really easy to, count.
And you wanted us to add Maple, you said?
Yeah, routes 32 and 61 serve Miller Maple Park and Ride and Skyline.
Which is which now?
They both.
Okay, both.
I
do?
guess that's how, yeah, you just.
They serve who?
Miller Maple Park and Ride and Skyline.
Maple. Okay, ride,
And I don't know if you have to say Skyline High School.
Should say, yeah, high school.
sky, line.
Okay.
Then, the second page, 1, 2, 3, 4 lines down. It starts North Parker has the highest designations.
Yeah, I
What is
probably
that?
should take that out. It was in one of the reports. Let's see here.
North Parker Road or?
I think it was a reference to how the volume of service on Wave. And
Yeah.
I do think it requires, in order to
Oh.
include it, it requires more explanation.
Explanation, yeah,
So
we'll
you
mention that.
either explain it more or take it out.
I recommend taking it out. This is just a report for our BOT. I mean,
Okay,
who's probably not gonna pay a whole lot of attention after they figure out what they're gonna do with their millage, so.
okay, got it.
And then. 1, 2. The 8th line down, page 2, first paragraph, 8th line down where it says. Plans to increase the frequency of service with more buses on the weekends. And I would get rid of and just say by increasing the 60-minute service to every 30 minutes before 6 p.m. So the sentence says AATA to the right plans to increase the frequency of service with more buses on the weekends by increasing the 60-minute service to every 30 minutes before 6 p.m. And get rid of and add in by.
So it's increasing service to 60-minute, increasing the 60-minute service to every 30 minutes.
Correct.
Okay,
I would suggest that we put a break in that paragraph and start a new
New
section with the prior sentence, the AAATA is planning. And preface that sentence by saying, as a result of the countywide millage, comma, AAATA is planning to make fixed route ridership improvements commencing August 2024. Is that correct, Ken?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it
And
a
I'm-
countywide millage
but-
now?
Yes, or
No, it's not.
member jurisdictions.
Well, yeah, what would you call it?
As a, what? As a,
The Scio we don't pay into that, do we?
well, we will be. We're good, there, the AATA is asking us to pony up money to increase our service
Well,
accordingly.
yeah, but we
That's
don't,
part of
but
the
it's
quote.
separate from this
But
part
our-
of money.
So
Right.
So it's
No,
not
it's
just.
Scio
it's just
residents
not-
will be paying into
Yes.
that, right?
Yeah, it's.
For
more
our,
than-
because
Yeah,
we
yeah,
weren't
paying
a part
for
of that,
service,
we weren't a
yes.
part, yes.
Yeah,
that's
so,
what-
so it's more than just the countywide millage, we're paying in addition to that.
No, it's,
You're paying for your part of the service increase.
but it's
So you-
not, it's not, to call it a countywide millage is not accurate, I think.
Right,
that's what
right,
Maureen's
that's
saying.
Let's just
Yeah.
focus on what we're paying for. We are paying for it instead of countywide thing.
Well, I
think that's
wanted
too
to,
confusing.
well, I wanted to differentiate because otherwise I think people reading the report may be confused. Is this something that the millage is paying for? And I think actually it's not. I mean,
It
I
is,
think,
we're
well,
paying for our share. What happens in our Scio Township, we're paying for.
well,
those
is
increases.
that paid for by our Scio millage or is it paid for by the
I think
other
it's both.
millage or is it both?
I think it's both, because, I think part of what you stated when Forrest was here is that you were expanding services throughout the county. And when we talked about maybe not having Scio do the same thing, he said, really everything was coordinated. So that's where I saw the county.
It is
part-
coordinated
Yeah.
because they're gonna have the same bus that goes down Ann Arbor coming into
Coming here,
Scio.
okay.
However,
But then the other part of it.
but
when I look
however,
at our-
we're paying for
Yeah.
that from Wagner Road forward.
Right, and that's the thing, when I
That
look at the
increase.
fee increase, we have an increase, to cover, I think, that additional service.
Yeah, once it hits the township boundary.
So
yes.
it's really both.
So let's just keep it,
It's called the urban area millage.
So
Yeah.
but there is another millage that is triggering those improvements.
Correct.
Is that millage helping to pay for those improvements in
Not in
Scio
Scio
Township? Or
Township.
is it just the Scio millage that's paying for those improvements?
Scio millage is paying for the Scio portion.
Okay,
So Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti Township is
paying for their
paying for their
portion.
portion.
okay.
Why don't?
So actually, we don't need to reference that other
Right.
millage.
Correct.
Because we're not paying into that.
Right.
We're paying our own millage and that's what's paying.
I
for
just
whatever
love it when
service.
we're on the
No,
same
no, I
page.
get it, I get it.
Okay, so I should
I
take,
all got there.
I should take that part out about as a result
Yeah,
of the countywide millage.
we
Yeah.
could say AAATA is planning to make fixed route ridership improvements commencing August 24th, 2024, throughout the urban area, including Scio Township.
That's,
All right,
Good length.
That's an important.
I think that's,
Well,
why are we reporting on what Ann Arbor is doing or Ypsi Township? We
Because-
want to report to our residents, be crystal clear about what we are spending money on.
Except it's happening and we are, and what we're paying for is increasing result of implementing that plan. It's increasing in August. Our payment to,
It's okay that it's increasing in Ann Arbor or Superior Township.
but it's increasing in Scio
But
Township.
the point is
in
that
August.
our funding is paying for our service to increase. That's the point.
I guess what I'm saying is, it reflects the overall implementation of the AAATA plan, okay, for the whole urban area.
So here's the problem, Jan.
Yeah,
All right, we're not doing it because Ann Arbor wants more increased service as their survey or Ypsi wants more increased service. We're doing it because our residents want more frequency, okay? Increased service, more frequency, that's what this is, these changes. So I want to be able to spotlight that we're addressing that in our millage. I don't want to spotlight it's great that everybody's getting the increased service and that makes a lot of sense in terms of a inter-urban modal plan. But I want to make sure that our residents understand that we're not doing it because there's a intermodal transit plan. We're doing it because our residents want more increased service, more.
I think I see a way forward. I hear what both of you are saying, and I think.
I'm okay with losing
Well,
the
for-
argument. I just wanted to make sure I was clear on what I
No,
was
I,
saying.
I,
No,
I think I see a way forward in terms of the text and how to represent it in a way that's understandable to readers of the report. And
Mhm.
I think it's to create a new section at this point in the paragraph that's focusing on what the Scio Township millage is paying for. And we can see if we need to somehow reference the connection to the larger system. I don't know that that's, I think actually, Kim, you're right. It's not really necessary for our report. The focus of this report is what is this millage in, you know, it's not an increase, but what is this millage renewal? What will it pay for? You know, what differences in service will it pay for? Or what areas of service is it paying for? And that's, I think, the next section
Yeah.
of this report.
Yeah, and I would agree, Kim. I think the point is that a lot of people who are using those services connect into Ann Arbor and use the bus service, you know, within the city. And so to say that, you know, AAATA is making service improvements in August throughout the urban area is almost a little education piece. But I agree with you about making it very clear about what the millage pays for. So that was
Yeah, no, I get you.
the thought
I
there.
just want. Yeah,
Well, the tricky thing that we're introducing along with what the millage pays for is the service improvements or the service enhancements or whatever. And so I think we're gonna have to maybe wrestle with that text a little bit to make sure that that's clear, not only the routes that are included and the services that are included, but the enhancements or improvements to the services.
and then the last sentence in that same second page, first paragraph, funding for fixed routes, A-ride and wave services. I think that should say funding for fixed route 30, A-ride service and wave. A-ride and wave services are funded in part by Scio millage, state and federal funding. I just wanna not, because we don't pay for all those routes. So
Okay,
I'm just saying, let's
just focus on Route 30.
focus on what we're paying for, because that's what we're saying. We're paying for it by the millage, state and federal funding.
Okay.
And that probably belongs in when we talk about the funding, right, in that paragraph section.
So are we moving into that section?
The recommendations.
No, the funding
Funding
section.
section. The new funding section.
I'm about to make that really fun.
Oh, there's gonna be a
So.
funding section, okay.
What it
We're
is that
gonna we're gonna add a funding section before recommendations.
Okay.
Is that what I'm hearing?
I see.
Okay,
Well, is that different from what the Scio millage funds?
I think that's what they're talking about.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All right, so it's the same.
yeah.
okay.
Are we ready to get into some weeds? Like pretty deep down the rabbit hole. I'm sorry that I didn't have this earlier. Forrest was able to get a meeting with our finance deputy and then pass this along to me as I was walking out, getting ready to come here. So technically what the POSA agreement pays for is AAATA service. And so that would be Route 30 and the A-ride service.
Right.
Second part of it is wave funding comes exclusively through MDOT. So your budget that you get, your budget's approximately 1.7 million, somewhere in there.
Operations, yeah.
That all comes, that's a pass-through agreement that comes solely from MDOT.
We get.
No.
Yeah.
Yes,
Um,
No, part of
yes.
the millage comes through, passes through.
Nope, we looked it up.
So on my last contract that I got, there was a table for our pass-through funding, that's 5311. And then there's a table that is for the Scio millage. And so you're telling me you're not actually giving us Scio millage dollars, you're only giving us pass-through dollars.
That's the interpretation that Forrest gave today. I can go back and double
That's not what
check.
happens.
So-
We have a contract with you about that.
I'll share the contract that
No
I have.
language right now in our current COSA that speaks to anything about waivers.
This is the problem why we weren't getting our money. Clear it up.
Okay.
Now,
So
I could be completely ignorant about this, but this needs to be cleared up.
So the interpretation, and
Oh, it's a new interpretation.
is that it comes as part of that $1.7 million, 115 is specifically designated for service within Scio Township.
Okay.
Is that how much you get at 115?
Yeah, it's the approximate number, yeah.
So let me understand that, what you just said. You're saying that in your interpretation, that MDOT tells you to give us 115,000, 110, whatever the heck it is, for Scio Township.
To be spent specifically within the township. And the reason why it has to go through us is we're the designated agency for Washtenaw, the Ann Arbor urbanized area in Washtenaw County for transit funding.
Well, I understand all that. I understand all that. Because under that interpretation, it makes a lot of sense. That's not how we've been doing it. And why all of a sudden did you come up with it?
It's not part of that meeting, but I can go back and go.
I know you're the best. I'm just letting you know.
Well, the question, I think they were looking at it because of the question that we posed, right?
Right.
Could the money, we were assuming that it was millage money from Scio Township that was passing through.
Right.
And they were looking at it to answer the question of can we separate and waive, a payment from our millage and pay a payment from our millage, and the money evidently, according to this new interpretation,
Yeah,
that wave is getting through AATA is not Scio millage funds.
so,
But couldn't we?
so lucky for us in Scio that the state of Michigan, MDOT, has seen fit to tell you to make sure 100 or 110 goes to Scio Township Transit, but none of the other townships.
I have a
No, so
follow-up
the
question.
remaining 1.7 for wave, that I'm assuming it's subdivided into other townships and stuff like that.
So the pass-through funding we get from you guys is just like, we give our budget 1.7 million or whatever the number is. And then there's equations that go with each pieces of that, and we don't divide it into the townships. Except for Scio, because. we're under
Because the state has
impression-
said Scio is special and you should give,
So.
and that you should give part of the transit monies to Scio, but forget the other townships.
So it sounds like in spirit, they're passing on the dollars to do the work. The mechanism they're doing it through is the pass-through dollars. But that leads me to my question. Are we allowed then, as WAVE, to have a separate contract with Scio because they're part of the urbanized area?
As far as we understand, that's correct. If it's above and beyond what the
Okay.
pass-through monies are, yeah. But altering the pass-through monies, I think that is the agreement between you and MDOT when you guys submit your budgets.
No, that's the requirement of MDOT. That we
So,
pass
we don't.
through aid.
The only
Because
thing-
it's non-urbanized funds, it's rural funding, rural
Yeah.
transit funds.
It's usually how state agreements work. They
Yeah.
require you to agree.
So
I'm gonna have
I
to
guess,
move on.
Ken, could we contact MDOT and see if we could establish that other relationship if the township was interested in doing that? I
I'm not
guess.
sure.
No.
So if
They
you wanna
got
go,
no
Ask
rules.
them.
if you wanna go, like, this is basically formula funding.
Yeah,
If you wanna go above the formula funding, there's nothing saying you guys
Right.
can't contract directly for that. You don't even have to get MDOT involved in that
Right,
necessarily.
if it's
So
over and
Marie-
above that amount, but I'm talking about that amount, the 115 that you mentioned.
That one.
I mean, it's. Yeah, I'm just asking the question.
Can you ask it again? My brain's like in overdrive.
Well, I understand. Well,
What I got
Ken is
was
saying
the-
that, initially we thought the amount that you received was part of the amount that the township provided to AAATA. This is what we talked about at our last meeting, but he's now saying that that amount is coming from MDOT as a pass-through for WAVE. So the question I was raising is whether MDOT would just authorize providing the funding directly to the township, and we could enter into the agreement if we want to. So that was the question.
So I guess not,
Okay,
because as I understand their interpretation, the monies for Scio are coming from the state and the federal government, not the millage. Our
right,
millage is all about AATA, the way
Right.
they interpret it,
uh-huh.
okay?
Mhm.
Well, and
So
there's some official capacity that AAATA qualifies for as an organization that allows them to be the conduit for that funding that's going to WAVE. I'm not sure, I guess the
Because
question maybe
MDOT
you're asking, Joyce, is could Scioto Township play that role? And I'm not sure.
As a fiduciary,
Yeah,
that's
do we
really
want
what it
to?
is.
Oh,
Yeah,
Probably you don't want to.
Probably
No.
not.
okay,
But the
Um,
question,
yeah, 'cause they're
I guess the
kind of
question still hanging in the air is, could we make up the gap that exists between WAVE's funding
that
and,
27,000
yeah, the
that we
20,
talked
whatever, the
about.
27,000 that we talked about at our last meeting.
Well, it sounds like
In
we
order
could do
to
that.
allow the
Yeah.
increase in service.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah, oh, cool, well, we don't need
Yeah, we
permission to
could
do
do
that.
Right,
Yeah.
it's the,
I wonder how we can, perhaps we can have this is kind of an aside, a way of AATA thing. I'm struggling to get the latest interpretation. And I'd like to meet with you as
that's
a
not a
board
problem.
president and
Right.
executive director,
Yeah,
and let us see where you get that from, because now I've only been on the board about 3 years, maybe. And it's not even with the former executive director, that was not, so. We'd like to work through that.
yeah, no problem.
okay.
My take on how you guys got to that is that the agreement Scio has for transportation is with AATA and AATA solely. So if we're supporting that work, we would be a subrecipient. And it would make sense that they would use the pass-through funds as a way to make that happen. And by passing on the 115, they're doing like in spirit what we're all talking about. It's just when the paperwork comes down to it, it doesn't quite play out that way.
But that's not what they're saying. They're saying that that's state money, federal and state money,
Mhm.
and that's why it's required, the pass-through is even
Yeah,
required in
but
the
if
first
that's
place.
the case,
And that the state has said, we want you to take care of it, of Scio through WAVE. That's what I'm struggling with. Where does it say the state wants you to take care of Scio through WAVE with these?
Well, they're not just saying that, right? Are they, they're not just
Well,
saying
that's what
Scio, they're
I'm saying,
saying
their
all this
interpretation.
area that WAVE serves,
They-
right?
They're saying that the state has told them that you
Well-
give this much amount of money to WAVE.
Well, it sounds like you're saying the total is 1.7 million. So it
my
sounds,
budget is 1.7.
pardon,
My budget is the
Okay.
1.7
7
million.
million. And so what is the amount that you receive from the state? And how is that allocated? That's the
The 1.7
question.
million all goes to AATA as a subrecipient.
Right,
And they
that's what,
pass it through to us.
okay,
But he's further saying that the
but it's not, I'm thinking it's
hundred
not
and
just,
15,000 really wasn't coming from Scio dollars. It was, the state told them to give WAVE 115,000 for Scio.
I think WAVE gets to determine how it's apportioned, but right now, that's where the apportionment is. for
well, that was the question I was raising with him, of that total amount. Do you have a formula, or how do you allocate the amount to various municipalities?
We don't,
They only send
for
it to
WAVE, we don't
Scio.
make those.
They get a lump sum at WAVE,
Yes.
and then WAVE determines how to spend it.
No,
That's what we gotta find
AATA gets the lump sum as the pass-through.
That's what I'm,
That's what I said.
And, but they further told AATA to give this 100 or 110, whatever it is, to Scio,
I don't think that's what Ken was just saying.
not to all the townships.
But you said it was formula funding for rural service?
As far as I understand.
Yeah.
I think
Am I right in saying that the state has told you to set aside of that 117, 1.7?
that's the language Forrest used, whether or not it's.
It's that the 115 or whatever it is goes to
I'm
side.
getting ready,
Wait,
really.
yeah.
Now.
Let's get the whiteboard out.
All right, so our Waves budget is around 1.7 million,
Uh-huh,
right?
uh-huh.
When it comes to these pass-through funds from MDOT to AATA to us, they look at our 1.7 million, they determine what number of that is eligible expenses. Let's just say it's 1.5 million. And then they have a few formulas, one from the state and one from the feds, and I think there's another line perhaps. But one is about 40% of this eligible expenses, they pay us. And then there's also at the same time, we're taking that 1.5 million. And there is some other 35%, but it's actually capped at some like 350,000. And so when he's talking about the formula, like this is what he's talking about. The state has this much that that AATA has to give us. And this much that AATA has to pass on to us. And so this is when I talked about my contract with AATA, this is the first table where they lay all that out. In the same pass-through contract though, they have another box that says, some flat amount for Scio.
Can you put Scio next to that?
Yes.
Arrow to 115. Now, what they're saying today is that 115, they've been told by the state that 115 comes out of the 1.7. And they've also been told that you to give Scio 115,000 out of that 1.7. Is that correct?
I understand, and I don't know if I'm using the correct language, let's just say 115 is designated for Scio. I don't know.
Right. There's
that
no
came about.
formula, there's no formula attached to this when we get the contract from AATA. It's just a flat number. The formula is for the rest of the services that we
So
do.
is the 115 in addition to the 1.7?
It's
No,
part of the
it's
1.7.
part of the
Part of the
1.7.
1.7.
It's from
Okay.
the 1.7 total. Somehow, this number of 115, does it change from year to year or is it?
It
constant?
has been increasing.
Okay.
I know in fiscal year 22, it was 68,000. And I'm pretty sure, and then in fiscal year 23, it was around 113,000. And then this year, it's around 115.
So there's some kind of escalation of that.
Yeah,
number.
but I
Where it
haven't
came from, we
been
don't know.
I haven't been privy to how they get that number. And if I could have influence over that number, I'd be happy.
So that's something that you can take up with the state, because we have a representative that we work to.
Yeah, with
verify
the state
that.
and then with the ATA, because they're the people it has to work through.
Well,
Okay,
no,
so-
but they're saying that the state has told them. So there's gotta be some way to verify that.
Yeah, I don't think the state says it has to be 115. I think the state's, the problem is I don't know. I don't know how
Or
this,
whatever it is.
I don't know how this align
The state
appeared
gets,
in there.
yeah, the state gets funny about urbanized areas. And so I think it'll just be good for us to talk and figure.
But
figure
it
out.
sounds like this is not a question for Scio Township. I mean, even though it's a figure that's associated with service in Scio
Right.
Township, it's
Yeah.
not something that's triggered by our millage
Mm-mm.
necessarily. It's something that's related to state funding.
Through AAT.
Mhm. Yeah, so this is.
But it does have
we
an
gotta talk.
implication for what we represent in the report, because we can't really say, oh, our millage is paying for wave services.
Correct.
Really,
Mhm.
because that's state money that's paying for that. Probably that state money would not be coming if we weren't paying for the additional services from AATA, because it's in relationship to the AAT services, but I'm not sure.
I don't think so. I think it's a totally separate pot of money. So we get urbanized transit funding. If I understand this correctly, if I'm saying this incorrectly, let me know, Marie. I believe this all comes from non-urbanized.
Yes. That top formula stuff is the non-urban areas. Funding 5311.
Which is completely independent of anything that we do over for Ann Arbor and that.
Okay,
Just
but
a question about that funding though, is at what point are you no longer eligible for the rural transit?
That's what I was trying to,
Funding.
that's what I was trying to get at, is the fact that we have some measure of bus service making, somehow making us eligible for an amount of money that this is part of this state funding.
As a result of our millage.
Well, yeah, we wouldn't have the fixed route along Jackson if we didn't have a millage, for example.
we
And-
support the amount, the allocation, that's what you're talking about.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering
Yeah.
if the fact that we are paying extra is somehow making us, eligible for an earmark essentially within this state funding for rural service. We don't know. I'm guessing maybe there's some relationship there, but we don't know what it is.
Yeah, and my question was a little different. And what are the requirements to get the rural funding? Because at some point, is it population? Is it,
Yeah, they go through census meetings with SEMCOG's involved, Watts is involved. Usually municipalities are invited to those types of meetings for discussion on urbanized areas, small urban areas, and rural areas. Do you guys participate in Watts meetings or SEMCOG
We
meetings?
have
at all?
representatives to both
Okay.
of those now.
yeah, but I'm just wondering if there's a definition and when you cross a certain line, that funding disappears and you're kind of on your own. I don't know. Does like Pittsfield get rural funding?
Not that I'm aware of.
Non-urbanized.
If they did, then People's Express would likely be the provider and they're a subrecipient of AATA like Wave is.
Well, I'm just trying to, I think, I'm just trying to understand in the long term. Is there a line that you cross that you're no longer eligible for that funding anymore based on growth or,
Population.
those
It is based,
types
I
of
believe it is
things.
based on population.
Yeah.
Because there's correct me if I'm wrong, is there non-urbanized is different than rural? Or is that the same thing?
I think they're the same thing.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that the formula, what if Scio qualifies as urbanized, that doesn't, that potentially means that.
You
the
might get
formula
more.
The other part of the formula might go up then.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
so
I
I'm
don't
gonna
think it's
use an
guaranteed that the funding
example
is gonna
of
Gotcha.
Livingston County. Livingston has LETS as their transportation service and they are considered at the federal level a small urban, which is different than our state level small urban, which is really confusing. But they get so much funding, they're eligible for so much funding. They're actually not even using all of their dollars. So they never have a deficit. Because they've hit that population level. Some of that is a little bit more nuanced than I've gotten into yet. SEMCOG is really one of the key players in those discussions. But population is definitely a big piece.
Well, I'd like to,
I wanna
Oh,
kind of.
okay, go ahead. All right,
Kind of redirect.
I was thinking we need to redirect,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
good,
just
you
go
do
on.
it. You do it.
Okay. So, okay.
Get us all on the same page.
Yeah, I find it, so there must be some connect with. I'm just trying to figure out how the state would say, you give 115, whatever that is.
So that's, I think,
To Scio.
I would sit down with Forrest and have him go through that process with
All
him.
right.
As far as how they determine to give
Absolutely.
Wave the 115, and if it's another formula that he used internally, he should be able to share that with us.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I'll set that up with him and Dina, the finance.
Oh, yeah, that'd be
deputy.
great. Thank you.
So Ken, just getting back, again, we talked about having another section on funding. So you brought up the purchase of service agreement. So I'm thinking we should probably show the dollar amount there. And then we have the A-Ride service at the 115. And
No, there's no 115s anymore. A-Ride is that full amount that we sorry, am I doing a breakdown that's incorrect?
Well, in the letter you sent me, I'm just trying to make sure I get the numbers right. So you show here A-RIDE demand response for up to 9/30/24
Mhm.
is 55,672. So that's the A-RIDE part, and then we have WAVE at the 115
Which comes, yeah,
from
MDOT.
AATA,
comes
pass
first.
through to
Yes, yep,
AATA.
exactly.
Okay, all
It's
right.
in this 580,000?
Well, you looking at the letter?
Yep,
Okay, in the middle column.
The
with
current
this-
year.
That's our current year.
497.
Yeah, the 497, but of that 497, there's 55,672 related
Good point.
to A-RIDE.
The numbers don't add up. Right.
Well, it's more than what we have here, because it doesn't, you don't really show WAVE.
Okay.
So the money must be coming out of here.
Yeah. Well,
'Cause
maybe,
otherwise it
no,
would be
no,
more-
no, because Ken is saying that we're not paying for WAVE, right? That's
Correct.
just what you said.
Correct.
So the 390 comes, this is directed to AATA for our services.
Okay,
So the 115 that he's talking about isn't included in here at all.
right. It's included in our 1.7 mil
Right.
Yeah,
pass-through money, yeah.
Told you this was gonna be fun.
okay.
No, I
So,
wasn't-
Which is
okay,
unrelated
so
to
when
the
I,
millage.
when I do the funding
Correct.
section, I'm gonna show the 390, the 55, and then I'm assuming we have the capital costs. I'm not sure exactly what that entails. Is that the cost of maintaining the buses?
For purchasing over the,
Purchasing?
you know,
Okay.
amortized over
Yeah,
whatever.
and then I'm gonna add to this the amount for WAVE,
Yes,
okay, because it's not in here,
yes.
okay,
But that's MDOT funding, right?
right, and I'll reference that through as MDOT through AATA.
And then,
Is there anything else that I should include?
well, for the current fiscal year, I think that's it, right? But, I mean,
Yeah, for the
we're not really
current-
factoring in fares, right? Because that's
Uh,
that's outside what people
well,
are
we
paying
should.
per person.
I think we should, because that's still a part of the cost of providing the services.
But we could just reference it without putting a number in, I think, because
We might be
otherwise
getting into
we're
the
gonna have to do some more work to find
To
out
get
what the
to
fares
that.
were.
So that's just considered AATA recovers that amount.
It's such a small
Yeah.
thing for both of their budgets.
Yeah, I
The
thought I
real
saw
So for
money
purposes
is,
of our report, we need to reword it that we're just paying for A-RIDE and Route 30, Jackson Road corridor, period,
Okay,
and leave the other alone.
well, the other services.
The other
are-
services are paid by the state. The 115 is paid by the state, not
right,
AATA
right.
and their generous.
Or we're benefiting
But
from
we benefit
loops
from
that
that.
come from,
If we're trying to
Other
identify
communities.
the total cost.
That's too complicated for what purposes of our report. Yeah, we benefit from
Yeah,
that, but that's not contracted. That's not contracted services. AAT, or WAVE services in Scio Township are not contracted. It's not contracted by us with them. And it's not it's the state. It's a set aside, what I consider like a set aside by the state telling AATA to take that 1.7. Well, that does, no. So this doesn't make sense. You have to answer this. The 1.7 mils that we get from the state and the federal government.
Okay, so 1.7 is our expenses. That's how AATA reimburses.
Okay, however you want to say it, this is
Yeah.
what this money they give us, right? Pass-through money, 1.7.
Those are our expenses. They determine our eligible expenses. So let's say that's the 1.5 million are
They give us
eligible.
1.5 million.
They give us the 40% and that 35% capped at 350,000.
Okay, and then on top of that, they tell AATA to say, of this money you give, we get this 40 and this 35%, we want you to give services in the amount of 115 to Scio Township.
As opposed to,
I mean, that's what we're talking about today, right?
yeah.
That's how we read that.
so I think what we're talking about in terms of the millage.
The millage, right?
Is the difference between the figure that you're getting of state funding through AAATA for services in Scio Township and the level of service that you would be providing in order to sort of align with what AAATA is doing through the Meyer stop.
So I'm not gonna be complaining. I wanna thank the state
Okay, okay,
for
so,
being so attentive to us.
yes, yes. So what I'm hearing then, or when I get into the new funding section, I'm gonna add the amounts related to, the fixed route, A-ride, and that's it.
I think that's right. I think it's Route 30
Uh-huh.
and the A-ride. Now, obviously, as we
And
talked
the
about,
capital.
the A-ride, we benefit from accessibility to the A-ride from all of these other loops because that brings in,
But
you know,
we
it makes
would
more
pay
of our
for that.
population eligible, but
Mhm.
we're not paying for those routes. We're just paying for the A-ride service
Service, yeah, okay,
And the Jackson Room.
and the Jackson Road service, right?
yeah, okay. And then I'll also include the capital cost, so that's part of our budget.
I'm trying.
Yeah, that's part of what they're charging
What
us
they're
in the,
charging
in
us,
the, in
and
the
that's
agreement.
497.
I just got a shot of curveball today
Yeah,
myself.
this is, I'm
For
trying
the
to
millage, we're talking
digest
about
this.
more
This is
like this
beyond
figure,
me.
aren't we?
This is
Because we're looking
beyond.
for
Right, this is going.
Well, you know, it's
forward, yeah.
important for us to know.
But I
and
was just
look
looking at
what we
we're paying
thought.
now.
what we're paying now.
Yep,
Yep.
and now kind of cover that too. All
All
right,
of us.
but I,
Understand what a good deal transit
Yeah.
is, right?
but I guess the only thing,
Absolutely.
I think we still need to have some reference to wave because we're talking about wave in the report.
Yeah.
So
And I wouldn't want you guys to like cut yourself off from WAVE by not having.
that's my
in the
concern.
report,
I
you
mean, I think we have to talk about wave and the costs.
We could just say we get, I mean, this is a loose sentence.
Well, we can just
get our
say-
Wave services, wave for rides, fixed route along Jackson Road corridor, as well as door to door, funded by the state.
Okay, so yeah, I
Something
think we
in
need to
that.
have something in there. Okay,
Well, I think what we're talking about in our proposal for the millage renewal and restoration is enough of a margin to cover the increased service of WAVE on top of the state funding to align with what AATA service will be going
And-
forward.
And that's where that separate contract would come
Right,
in.
exactly.
right,
We'll have
right.
to, we'll have to work that out.
Okay, all right.
But I don't see why I don't see any reason. Do you have contracts with other municipalities?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't,
That's
there's
a fact.
obviously, there's a precedent for doing it.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Everybody else's contract.
Oh.
They don't get a little set aside from them.
Oh, that's why we're special.
I mean, I'm not complaining. Just anybody out there, don't read my words. I'm not complaining.
Right.
Please don't interpret my words that way.
So Ken, you can just put it on the record that we're requesting another little set aside way beyond the 115.
That will probably be a negotiation for Marie to have with them.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Okay, so let's get back to recommendations. Are we all done with
The cost test or?
yeah,
I had a couple more
okay,
thingies I can run through real quick. Under recommendations,
yes.
a survey was conducted by I would say an AATA survey. In number one, Enhanced Transit Services, an
Okay.
AATA survey.
They did the survey?
AATA did the survey of all the communities. And then in that same
Oh,
subsection,
wait a minute, I think that's our survey that
no,
Chris did.
no, because it's talking about a survey was conducted by nearby communities to determine level and type of services in their respective communities.
Maybe four
That's the
nearby.
AATA survey.
Was it?
Or-
No, it was ours. We
Well,
did.
then we're
I
not
think-
talking about respective communities.
Well, yeah, what we're talking about is a survey that we conducted related to these communities that are stated here. And Chris did the survey, remember, Chris?
Mhm.
On services that they
Maybe,
provide.
but calling it a survey is confusing. Why don't we call it
Something else.
research on comparable?
Comparable
But so the
communities.
community surveyed were Ann Arbor, Ipsy, and that's the stuff we got from AATA, is that?
No, we got that. Well, Chris contacted the communities to get information related to what services they provide in the transit
Oh,
area. Yeah.
Okay, I completely
So-
misread that. I'm sorry.
Sort of a peer review?
Well, we wanted to get an idea of how we looked in comparison with other communities as far
Yeah,
as
just.
services.
I like the
picking the
Peer
language.
review is good.
You gonna
Why- why
call
we-
it a
why-
peer review?
I would just
Yeah.
say, why, Scio Township conducted research to determine the level and type of services provided by nearby communities. And then the next sentence explains what the research was.
Yeah, okay,
I have to head out. Thank you all for having me today.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so Chris, on that survey, I know when we talked about it, there was one area that required a correction, so can you look at it and see
Sure.
if it's the final and send me a final copy? Okay,
Yep.
all right.
Sure.
So this number 2 says, we want to work with Wave to increase flex ride, door-to-door services in our township. ATA also provides flex ride services customers in their service area, but has staffing constraints at this time.
That's what Ken said in our.
So my understanding that flex ride is different from door to door. They're not the same thing.
Thought it was the same except that.
Forget that, it's the same.
It's the same thing. I was just gonna say, just based on our discussion, Wayne called it door to door, Ken called it flex ride.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
It's
It
just
should we put, if we're gonna use both terms, we should,
But they have different terms for the same service. So what do you think we should do?
I'm just thinking, if you say flex ride, you could put in parentheses, door to door.
Well, it should.
That's what it has.
That's what it says right there.
Yeah,
Okay,
okay, forget that then. Number
All right.
3.
I'd probably make the R lowercase.
yeah, okay.
After discussion, the committee believes it's an opportunity to enhance services at a more reasonable cost to riders by offering a one fare option within 90 minutes of Scio riders. This can be accomplished by allowing riders to use a transfer between the two service providers. The concept offers efficiency. Now I'm reading again, it makes sense. So allowing riders to use a transfer slip between Wave and
Sure you got
to the
it.
service
Just
providers.
say AAA.
Does that make sense in that line, the last line of that page? I'm
So
sorry.
can you go over that again?
Sure. So the third line up where it starts, this can be accomplished by allowing riders to use a transfer slip between the Wave and AATA service providers. And get rid of two service providers,
Okay,
just to be clear.
okay.
And then I ran out of time with this other stuff, so that's all I have for the report.
All right. Jan, what's that?
In number 4,
Yeah.
I think we wanna, it's designate, it's called a Go Pass program as a.
Oh, is it Go
opposed to-
Pass?
Yeah, it's a
Okay,
Go Pass
sorry about
program.
that, yeah.
And is it only offered in Ann Arbor? Is that,
Yeah,
and is it funded by the DDA in Ann Arbor?
yes.
Okay,
So it's just Ann Arbor, okay, funded by the.
Not
DD.
bypass, go pass.
Yeah, we're changing
Yeah.
every place where it says bypass, it's
Have
go pass.
pass, yeah.
We're bypassing bypass to go.
and I guess we should say the Ann Arbor DDA just to,
Okay.
so somebody's gonna
So
say.
it's currently being offered in the city of Ann Arbor
I'll just say.
through
Ann Arbor
funding by
DDA.
the DDA.
Yeah. Okay.
Through Ann Arbor DDA.
Yeah, Ann Arbor DDA, not Scio DDA.
Okay.
Now, is that? But it's only employers within the DDA that can do the,
Correct.
yeah, so it's being offered in Ann Arbor's
Within the DDA
within the
boundaries.
within,
by the DDA, two employees who work within the DDA district.
So, does the DDA provide any funding for the program?
Yes.
Okay, and so how, just out of curiosity, how does it work through the DDA?
So there's a negotiation, and I don't know what there is, what the actual price per trip is, but there's a negotiated price per trip that each year they calculate what the previous year's usage is and then use that as an estimated budget going forward. And so then an employer pays a really small amount for each employee for a pass, like I'm gonna say $5, $7, somewhere in there. It's
it's
and then-
15 now.
It
Is
was
it up to
10
15?
last time I
Okay.
used it, so it's
Awesome.
15 now?
So they pay that portion of the pass and then the DDA subsidizes the rest of whatever the cost of the pass is.
Okay,
Yeah, so we should say subsidized.
Subsidized by the Ann Arbor DDA.
okay.
And if it's
So-
based on
Whoa, 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 whoa,
ridership,
whoa, 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 whoa,
then
whoa, whoa,
it
whoa,
could be
whoa.
a reasonably good deal, right?
Oh, and it's an excellent deal.
Mm-hmm.
But, so I know you keep saying Ann Arbor DDA. So our sentence number 4 should say, the committee recommends that the Scio DDA work with AAT to develop the Go Pass, blah, 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 blah.
Okay.
Not the Ann Arbor DDA.
Well,
Scio.
No, it's
We should differentiate.
Two
That's a good
DDA,
point.
yeah.
If
So
we're,
we should say Scio here because we're then talking about Ann Arbor and how they handle
So
the
in the-
program for the DDA.
so in the first sentence.
So you're just trying to give some context, but we don't have to mention the Ann Arbor DDA at all. We're just asking
Well,
that.
Well,
I guess what I was really looking at is trying to make the point that it's not it's not really a new program. It's just one that we have not offered in our
Okay,
community.
so we wanted to say Ann Arbor DDA in the first sentence.
no, we wanted to say
Say
Scio
Scio,
Downtown
Scio.
Development Authority in the first sentence and Ann Arbor DDA in the last sentence.
Yes, because, putting it in context that it's being offered in another community.
Well, where does it go in the last sentence?
So where the blank is, it would say being offered in the city of Ann Arbor.
Oh, Ann Arbor.
Comma, subsidized by the Ann Arbor DDA.
Yeah.
So in other
I got
words,
you.
there's a model in our adjacent community, which ironically is providing funding for rides by Scio residents.
I got you.
Yeah, I'm gonna work on that sentence a little bit, because the Go Pass program is currently being offered. It isn't a lot, you can only participate if your business is within the DDA.
Yeah, because I was a resident of Scio, but my firm was in Ann Arbor, so I got to
Yeah.
participate as a, and it used to be downtown, but I still was able to use
So,
it.
so currently being offered by employers in the city of Ann Arbor
It would,
through a subsidy by the Ann Arbor DDA.
employers within the DDA.
Within the DDA, that's what I,
Offered, within the
Oh,
DDA.
to Ann Arbor
district,
employee.
The Ann Arbor, the city of Ann
employers.
Arbor's DDA district, maybe that's it.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Offered-
but which is a big district.
Yeah.
I mean, it's virtually
All of downtown.
town and, Southview and.
Yeah, it stretches tentacles out into some parts of the area that you would not expect.
No, it does, yeah,
Yeah.
the South View, it's a big.
It's pretty
Or
big.
South Main. I was sort of surprised when I started seeing all those big buildings going up in South Main. I go, oh, they're in the DDA.
Mhm.
Okay. Any other comments on 4? 5?
So we referenced the survey earlier. I'm wondering if that's confusing. Let's see the survey.
Well, we talked about the survey document earlier in our meeting, but not in this report.
So the survey, the reference to the survey in item 1 under recommendations is this,
Remember, we changed that to peer review.
well, yeah, but I think it's confusing to have the survey reference there. I think maybe the list of questions asked of nearby communities is attached as an informational item. Because otherwise we've got two surveys and I think it will be confusing.
I
So
thought
we
we
should
agreed
take
on
this
peer
section
review.
out.
No, I wouldn't take it out. I would just I would leave it in. I would just change the terminology in item 1 under recommendations so that we're referring.
Transit
whenever we-
servers research.
Well, we're calling it conducted research instead of this, a survey, but then later in that
Oh,
same
well.
paragraph, it refers to it as a survey. I think it's just
So
a
this-
list of questions or something like that.
Oh, but this is two different surveys though.
That's what I'm
Oh,
saying.
okay.
It gets confusing. So I think if we just
Okay.
refer to the
The
in
first
item
one.
1, if we refer to it as a list of questions instead of a survey.
Okay.
Or the questionnaire used with the other communities or something like
The
that.
I
research
thought we were gonna
questionnaire.
use the term
right?
peer review
Something,
when we were
yeah.
talking about the other
Okay, we could
communities
just say.
and use the
we'll
word
call it
survey.
something
when we're
other
talking
than
about-
Call it
survey.
something other than survey.
Right.
and
All right,
put
gotcha.
ourselves up for that confusion,
All right.
which we just demonstrated is really easy to
Easy to
do.
do. You can't even keep it straight, right?
All right, we'll change.
Yeah, this language needs to be, because we're talking about the peer review and we're talking about the survey, so
So I have
we need to
change.
introduce the survey. The committee also presented the community with their own survey, residents,
So I
something
think if
like that.
we avoid
introduced.
that confusion, if we just change item 1 to remove the references to a survey.
Yeah, and you might want to call it Scio Community Survey.
Oh, yeah, you could do that too.
Yeah. That just sort of,
That
And
helps
then we
too.
can just call the other one, peer review research.
Okay.
Okay.
Or it's not really peer review, peer research.
Okay,
We
Peer
peer review if we ask them to
peer
look it over.
community research.
peer community research.
Okay.
Okay.
All
I
right.
know there's gonna be some professor who's gonna say peer review.
Yeah, right. Give me your credential.
Okay.
5.
Did we do five?
Pretty
We did
straightforward.
5?
We did 5 and we've
Six.
done 6. We're gonna add the word silo in
Scio.
front of community survey.
Okay,
So I have a suggestion for item 7.
okay.
And Jan, I don't know if I floated this idea with you, but there's a subcommittee of the environmental sustainability task force that is focused on transit. And it seems to me that because there is an existing body, the simplest thing to do would be to delegate this task to that body. And if we did later determine that we need to, create another standing committee, advisory committee, we can do that. But we've got a subcommittee of the Environmental Sustainability Task Force, if you think that would work.
Jan is
I think it would
thinking-
have to be an enhanced, we have, because that group is one, two, I think there's 3 people on that group, so we would have to enhance that. But they could actually.
Well, it seems like
be
they're
the-
already looking
Yeah.
at these things and rather than
Oh,
starting
they have
from
a keen
scratch.
interest.
Yeah.
They're looking at bus stops, they're
No.
looking at shelters,
Well, that's the thing,
they're looking,
they're already looking at transit issues. To start over with some other body doesn't make sense, but to give them an expanded scope and maybe add more,
Some more
add,
members.
add more people to it.
so I'm gonna try to say this as gingerly and as I can say it, sometimes. I would submit that intergovernmental workings requires. The government to make decisions that are unpopular. That we don't all have a consensus about. And my concern is that that committee emanating out of the sustainability group is asking them to do something beyond what environmental degrees and scientific degrees.
I don't know who's on it.
It's, well, the primary ones are Chris Ferrone and Kathy Jeffer. They're always, pardon me, Kathy, if you're tuning in. I always mess up on your name, but
She the person who's now representing.
yeah,
Semcog?
Semcog. I mean, she, I think, would be an ideal candidate, but maybe what it does need to be is, you know, a separate.
I'm throwing it out there
You know,
for us
you
to
may not get
consider.
the focus that you're looking for in the beginning, you know.
But the alternative is, that I see is to assign this to the Roads Advisory Committee, which I think is an even more inappropriate place to put it. So unless we create a new committee, the way that it reads, it's sort of like we're gonna assign this
Yeah.
someplace.
This is for the education piece and so forth, right? Of the,
That's separate, I
That's,
think.
yeah, that is separate. But, you know, I thought, Jan, when you and Jessica and Jillian met, there was a discussion about, you know, looking at transportation issues kind of in a more comprehensive way.
Yes,
So does it
yes.
fit in that category?
okay. Yeah, I think there needs, I mean, fundamentally, transportation is missing from the scope
Mhm.
of our official committees in Scio
Is
Township.
it a separate subcommittee of the planning commission?
It could be.
Uh-huh.
It could be. I mean, yeah, so, and I don't think the intent of the ESTF, you know, little mobility group was to take on transportation planning
Yeah.
for, you know, the town.
No, of course not.
But it could be a subcommittee of
Planning
the
commission.
planning commission. And that would fit into the, also dealing with J-Rod, the, I haven't reached out to Jillian, I wanted to because of that grant too,
Right,
because
it
that,
should be coming up and we talked about trying to get that type of technical support to,
Right.
you know, to support that type of initiative.
right.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that type of holistic transportation planning is, you know, it's a part of the master plan, it's about I don't know how to.
So for
It's
instance,
different in Ann Arbor, they have a whole different department, we don't have a department.
Mhm.
And so I don't know where in the hierarchy, either you put it under the planning commission or you create a different,
I
a different
kinda like-
committee, but.
I kind
Because
of
it
like
was-
putting it under the planning commission.
Hey, Kim. Guess who's gonna head this one up? But I know someone who will be very interested in serving.
well,
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, it was very critical that you were able to go talk to the assessor and work through that issue. So the convergence of what we want or what we think converges with what the possibilities are in real terms.
Right.
I think that's why I think it requires a little bit more specialized focus than
So
just the sustainability
I
piece.
would suggest then that in item 7 that we say, that we suggest that it be a subcommittee of the planning commission. Drawing on expertise from outside the planning commission, so and interest, so you probably want to have somebody who's a liaison with DDA.
Mhm.
Because, you know, what we're talking about is the Jackson corridor. And I think the person that you named, is it Catherine, is that her name? Kathy,
Yeah.
Who's currently our representative to Semcog, would be ideal to put on there. But I'll leave it, I think we should leave it up to the planning commission to figure out who else should be on there.
Yeah, I'm open to that.
Yeah.
And I just would say that it has been useful for you and Joyce to be sitting here, as well as Chris. Because now you have a sense of, I mean, I'm sure it's warbling in your head, it is in mine, of transportation.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And
I've learned so
and
much.
that's important because the bottom line is the BOT makes the call.
Well,
So that's what I
And
worry
that's,
about losing.
yeah, and, you know, well, John Reiser is our current Watts.
That's
person.
right.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's important to have Watts as a part of that.
I
mean,
agree.
AATA should be a part of it.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Even though I barked at you, I mean, I don't
Yeah.
like you.
Well, and has been an
And
incredibly
maybe-
useful discussion, this committee working together with the purpose of coming up with the millage renewal, But I think it has underscored the need for ongoing
Yeah.
attention to transportation
For
as
sure.
as a category of service.
Right, and you're getting the, you know, I'm just looking as I was looking at some of the J-Rod stuff, you know, the multimodal, Washington County Road Commission, you know, and, you know, it intersects with the pathways. Yeah, so there are really some key people that need to be on it.
But can we sort of delegate that, as Joyce was suggesting, to the planning commission?
Yeah, recommend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Recommend. That's near, the nearest to delegation. He knows.
I'm glad you're smiling.
I've never done
So recommend that.
Like in my house, they go, now, what meeting you going to? I'm going to the Transit Advisory Committee meeting.
So the planning, so we're replacing one of the township committees with the planning commission.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm gonna add that line.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just making a note and crossing out my earlier idea.
I think that's a more holistic.
Yeah,
approach.
no, it is. I was just
Yeah,
trying to
I
find the
agree.
path of least resistance, but I think this is better.
Okay.
Maybe I should have just shut up.
What's the problem, Kim?
Dumb,
When you
dumb.
demonstrate your skill and your knowledge, people will just keep coming.
You were right on target. Okay. Number 8,
It's the strategic engagement plan.
yeah. I just kind of summarized what we had talked about.
Yeah.
Now, could this be something that falls under that subcommittee of the planning commission, or is this separate?
I think this is more tied to,
The
millage.
short-term millage.
Short-term millage, yes.
Yeah,
This campaign coming up.
I think this ought to generate out of the Board of Trustees.
Good luck. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure they're gonna take it and probably enhance it with their own ideas, but I was thinking it might be beneficial to give them some suggestions
I hear you.
as a starting point.
I agree.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, and we do need to remember, and not that anyone's not clear on this, is that there's a separate,
Right.
there's a separation between the campaign per se that may occur to support the ballot proposal and the township's educational efforts.
Yes. And I tried to really focus on the educational component here.
Mhm.
Should I add something stating that that's very separate from, some type of millage campaign to persuade voters?
I don't think it goes without saying.
Okay, okay, so I didn't include that, but
Just if someone starts crossing the line into talking about campaign activities, then we
Yeah.
just have to all be good about reining
reading
that
that,
conversation back in.
okay.
Meeting.
Yeah, well, one thing I would add to the attachments, I think we should include just the transit service maps for reference.
I was gonna also include the draft ballot language.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Which I distributed.
Yeah.
So, a copy. You got it.
Let's see, maps.
And do you,
Should that say in the first year?
You actually, we determined that this afternoon when Chris and I were looking at it, it's missing the word first. It should, before the word levied, it should say when first levied.
When first left.
When first levied, okay.
and this is in the proposal.
So you're gonna modify
Did
that.
we really vote for Heather?
Well, I'll
You'll get it back
I'll
to
get back
the-
to Mariah
Yes.
and say, the word that's missing is pretty important.
I didn't, but I support it. Hold on, everybody.
Any other comments before we wrap up on this part of it?
So,
And then I think other than really cleaning this up, and I'll recirculate it to everyone. The other question as far as, getting it on the board agenda, whether everyone will be in attendance to answer questions, including you, Ken, and Forrest. Yeah. Okay, and Marie, would be great to have her there too.
or
Yeah.
someone from both of the.
Someone, I think Marie would be great to have there.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
She seems to be
You don't
the most
need-
knowledgeable about
Oh, yeah.
the whole thing.
yeah.
Yep,
Mhm.
she is.
And this can be remote or in person?
Yes, but I
So I
think
wouldn't
for
need
the
to be there.
committee, do you think the committee should be there in person?
If people can be, I think
Yeah.
that would be great, but I don't think it's essential. I think it would sort of present a united front if all four of us were there.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Alright.
It's really on you two.
Now I gotta present a united front.
That's about it.
Well, we, you know,
Eleven.
They showed me I'm united.
you know what we can
Kim,
do,
we'll have you and Jan in front.
holding up something, yeah.
Trans.
But we could put it on as a presentation,
Yeah,
during reports.
yeah, we could put it on during reports and, have that discussion.
And then if it's an action item later, in fact, I think what was suggested at our last meeting was to have the presentation on the 9th and then wait and have the vote on the 23rd. Wasn't that what they were
Well,
recommending?
isn't that the last date? I don't know if,
We
I'm
want to cut
just-
it that close?
yeah, that's the one thing I would rather, I guess, I thought Jessica said that was the last date.
It is.
Yeah,
It's the last regular meeting that we could vote at that would
Unless
meet
you're gonna
the
call a special
deadline,
meeting.
unless we call a special meeting.
so, I don't know if I'd wanna, at this point, make a decision on whether it should be the first or the last meeting, just let the board decide.
Yeah,
And when you're talking about meeting, you're talking about in April?
yeah.
In April,
So
yes.
the April 9th then is what we're talking about. That's the first regular meeting in April.
And then the other one would be the 23rd.
23rd.
That's like the last chance. Well, the last chance would be to schedule a special meeting, but I don't
Yeah.
think we want to do that. We want to put ourselves in that position.
Okay. Anything else? Let me just check on, so
Do
this
we
is
need
our
to meet
last
again?
meeting. I think this might be our last meeting. What I can do is circulate the draft again to everyone and really look at it close just to make sure that I've stated what you would like to say in that draft. Okay.
Can we get the date of is it the 9th?
It is the 9th, Tuesday the 9th.
2 meetings.
Okay. Anything else?
So then the question about the next meeting has been answered. We're not
We're
having.
not gonna have the next meeting.
We're not
That's
gonna-
what I'm hearing.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay. And, I just really want to thank all of you for, your dedication and your work on this project. I know it's not finished, but, we could not have gotten this far without your support and your involvement.
Thank you, Ken.
well, yeah, and thanks to the people who,
Yeah.
the resource people too. It's
Yes.
been essential.
And
Kim, yeah.
Jeff who's here and, Jeff,
Yes.
yeah, Jeff.
Well, I thought it was, I thought we managed to pull together our research rather quickly.
Yeah.
So, and it helped to have these guys at the table.
It helped quite a bit.
Chris, don't forget Chris.
Yeah.
Chris was good for help.
Absolutely. Chris is part of the group here.
Yeah, oh, we have to do public comment, yeah, right.
We do. We have one more agenda item before we
Okay.
summarize.
So Chris, are you ready for the public comment?
Yeah, I believe we have Rob Pattinson.
Okay.
Hi, gang. Rob Pattinson, Scio Township resident. Ken, you opened up a whopper of a can of worms there, with the interpretations. And, so I've got a whole bunch of points and I will, follow in your footsteps here. First of all, Will, Joyce, or Chris, could you take a picture of the whiteboard and include that with the minutes? Because it's not visible on camera.
Okay.
And Chris just switched the camera to it, but it's so light you can't.
Yeah.
But please put that into the minutes.
I think it's the reflections on the whiteboard.
Can you see it now, Rob?
Nope.
Okay, we'll take a picture.
Yeah, it's not that much information there.
Yeah.
Skip Davis and Steve King last week or the week before wrote to the Scio community news thread with some good questions about how to reduce costs. Skip asked if we could use a smaller bus because we're not getting that many people per ride, so the buses aren't crowded. Would that help to lower the costs? And Steve King did some math in the newsletter. In the agenda packet for last Tuesday's board meeting was the newsletter. And in it, Supervisor Hathaway put a table in and a description of the transit and bus information. And I added that up, and that was 22,828 rides. And dividing that into $500,000 is $21.90 per ride. And I wonder, has a cost analysis been done comparing how much it cost Wave to provide a ride compared to how much it cost AAATA to provide a ride? And can we, if it turns out that, say, Wave is $15 a ride and AAATA is $25 a ride, can we increase service from Wave and reduce service from AAATA to again maximize that $500,000? And in terms of Ken's can of worms, I think it's critical to have an accounting examination, a specialist accounting examination of how money comes in to AAATA, how it's spent, and how that interacts with the Scio millage. That was a very complex and quite frankly confusing conversation. And I think a specialist accounting of that would be critical. Thank you, Kim, for talking about meeting with AAATA. I think that will go a long way towards understanding that accounting aspect of it. And Jan, you made a point that I think is also critical, and that is that it will be very important to know when that formula changes the funding for Scio Township. Is it population? Is it growth? Is it tax base? And that is critical to know for planning, because if that formula means that in 5 years or 10 years or 20 years, Scio is going to lose that aspect of funding, it's going to be critical to know that. And that's all related to that formula for where that funding comes from. And also lastly, the documents that you discussed today and in past meetings are not in the agenda packet or in the minutes. So tonight you have the draft document. You had the letter from Ken that had some numbers that you were referring to. And then he talked about the transit maps and the ballot language. Could you make sure all of those documents get into the minutes so that since this is the last meeting, there's no next agenda packet for them to go in? But please make sure those get into the minutes so that we can follow along and see how things have progressed. And that is all of my scribbled points. Thank you all for taking on this incredibly complex and difficult process to maximize the efficiency of transit for the community. You've all done a fantastic job. Thank you very much, all of you.
Thank you, Rob.
That's it.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have a motion to adjourn. I heard it.
All right.
I'll,
Oh, support.
Okay, it's been moved and supported, so we are adjourned. I won't even ask you to vote on it.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, everyone.
my acclamation.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So that, putting the first thing that Rob put in place, I don't think is doable because